Good morning, everybody. It is, what is it today? Tuesday the 15th, day after Valentine's Day. No gaming this morning, just reacting. I've been playing a lot of Lost Ark here recently, and it's really I've never dug deep into the whole pay to win concept. It's never really been something that I messed with because honestly, I just any game that seemed pay to win with me, I would just immediately not play it. It was just kind of my personal belief. I don't like it. I don't mind paying subscriptions for games if they unlock all of the content, which is why I have absolutely zero issues with RuneScape kind of having their free to play model of go in there, test the game out, and then if you want to buy a membership, you get access to the whole game. No issues at all. I think even WoW does that, right, with their up to level 20 uh, kind of intro into the game and things like that, right? But uh, as I'm playing Lost Ark, I find myself really, really enjoying the game. I never thought I would enjoy it as much as I have, but I've never really done a pay to win game. And a lot of the things that I see in the game, like whether it's life energy and having potions that you could buy that will effectively like make it impossible for you don't have to wait. There's no time gating behind the material gathering and stuff like that. And so a lot of it kind of bothered me to an extent. And so I thought I would just pull up some videos and kind of react to other creators' ideas of pay to win and not only educate myself, but also kind of give my take on it. I, uh, I think it's obviously a different topic, and this whole concept of nobody having a true definition of what pay to win is always kind of mind blowing to me because to me it's so cut and dried. It's a very clear thing, but it's always interesting for me to hear other people's opinions. And Josh obviously puts together really really great quality videos, so I thought it was he'd be a good kind of talking point to kind of bring up some ideas, and then I would just do my react thing, and we'll take it from there. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into what is pay to win and what does it mean. And granted, this is an older video, but we'll tie this one back directly to Lost Ark, just given that that is kind of a hot topic these days. So let's go ahead and jump in, see what he's got for us. I'm going into this video blind. I have not watched it. I just saw that he had put one together, and I knew it was probably going to be pretty good quality overall. So let's go ahead and see what we got.
Pay to win. A phrase you've probably heard many times before. Most people would describe it as the ability to become more powerful in a game by spending money. But what exactly does it mean?
That's
Why
my
do so many
definition.
people have such a vastly different interpretation of this relatively simple phrase? Why is there such ambiguity around three simple words? In this video, I'd like to look at what many different people think pay to win means, how it can be applied, and the fringe cases where it may not be the most accurate descriptor. Then we'll look at how people
Yeah.
are reframing the monetization systems to still sell you power but not be considered pay to win.
See, and that one I don't understand. Like are are people as a whole just blind? I mean, because I don't understand that. Like, I mean, if so you rebrand some systems, but at the end of the day, if you are putting money into the game, I don't care how many different obfuscated tiers of currency that they have, or like you got you buy in crystals and then you have to convert it to, I don't know, bloodstones, and then you have to convert that or refine it through a currency exchange in order to get the other type of token or currency. Like at the end of the day, you opened up your wallet to put money into the game at one point. So I don't understand how all these different levels of indirection can cause somebody to lose track of what they're actually spending. To me, it just doesn't. It's you're either putting money into the game that's not a subscription, where there is no cap. That's the thing that bothers me, right? If you can put money into the game, continually get more powerful, and not have it cap at any point, that's where I have an issue. And I know cash shops aren't going away anytime soon, but the second that you start doing things like removing time gates with money, for instance, life skills, right, or stronghold, um, the length of time for like stronghold research and things like that, to me, that's pay to win. You're effectively buying something that other people would have to wait for. Therefore, you progress at a faster rate, and therefore you are winning. And I guess maybe the thing that everybody has an issue with this, we can't come to the definition of what winning is. And this is to be successful or victorious in a contest, or acquire or secure as a result, conflict, bet, or endeavor. So it's to secure a successful result in a contest, conflict, bet, or other endeavor, a victory. So, like in my mind, doing something faster than somebody else is one of the pillars of what winning would look like. I don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Hayes. MMORPG games have many different monetization methods available to them. Some games you buy once and then play forever without needing a monthly subscription,
Used to be
like
the
Guild
case.
Wars 2. Some games have a free trial that you can play for as long as you want, but once you do start paying the monthly subscription, you must continue doing so, like Final Fantasy XIV. Some games are buy once and then there's an optional monthly sub that gives you a few bonuses that you don't necessarily need, but they're a nice advantage, like Elder Scrolls Online.
Yep,
Some games
that
have a
would
free
be
trial and then a members only
kind of my
area that you can pay
ideal.
as and when you want to access it, month by month. That'd be RuneScape. There are many different
Yep.
ways to monetize
RuneScape I'm
your
okay
game,
with.
and several of these methods favor the players, but the most widely hated monetization method by a long shot is when your game becomes pay to win. Before we dive into exactly what pay to win is, consider dropping a like on the
This
video
looks
or
identical to
subscribing
Lost
to the
Ark.
channel for more
Look at this
MMORPG.
shit. Even down to the fucking little red dot circles. And this is why in the crystal icon, this is why my first impression of the game was so bad. Like, and I almost just stopped playing like within the first hour because like this looks exactly the same. It looks like a fucking mobile game. Like it, it's a lot of fun. I've been having a lot of fun. I've put in a lot more time than I thought I would at this point, but it looks like like a freaking mobile game, man.
BG content. Ring the bell for all the future
This could be
notifications.
Lost
As
Ark.
usual, a huge thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel alive. More on how you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. In this video, I'll have footage from various MMO games playing. They won't all be pay to win, but I will include the monetization methods for each game on screen. Depending on your own interpretation of the phrase pay to win, you may consider them so, and that's the first
Never
major
played that
hurdle
Warhammer 40k
with
game.
defining
Looks
this
cool actually.
phrase. It's so simple and short, it's open to many different interpretations, so let's break a few of the major ones down. The phrase pay to win is pretty simple. Paying money means you win the game, so let's go with that very simplistic version. Imagine
how is
you are
that not
playing a
everybody's
game.
definition?
In the game, there is an amazing, super overpowered weapon. The only way to get the weapon is to pay real money. You cannot grind for it in the game, it's not dropped by a boss, and you cannot trade it with other players. Having this weapon...
See, that kind of design immediately turns me off. And I'm really bad about this too because and I think a lot of people are this way, but like if I know, and maybe this only impacts like 1% of the player base, maybe even less, right? Like high-end raiders in WoW make up like what, less than 5%, 3% of the player base. And if I know that there's one item that's behind a paywall, like it completely turns me off from the game for like a very almost entirely. It's like if I know that I can't access everything, if I don't have a level playing field, I just assume not go on that playing field. Like and it's entirely possible, and in most cases very likely I'll never even come remotely close to that impacting me. And it's something that I've tried to work on with myself as well, right? With Lost Ark. That's why I've continued to play it because I said, look, I'm having a lot of fun. I haven't had to put any money into the game yet, and so therefore maybe it's just me. Maybe I just need to work on myself and try to look past this until it does become an issue or does become a problem, and maybe I'll find that it's not that big of a deal. But it does really ruin kind of the concept or the illusion of an even playing field. Like in CS:GO, I think they do it perfectly, right? Like you have a skin. It doesn't impact the game at all. You could put absolutely zero money into that game, and you still even have the ability to kind of slowly unlock certain crates that may provide you skins. Like the chances of you getting something is so incredibly slim, but that doesn't matter because they're purely cosmetic anyway. So it still feels like it's like an added bonus that you're still even able to kind of enter into that gambling scene of like, am I going to get a skin or not? And especially when you start putting weapons and items behind these paywalls, it just absolutely ruins that illusion for me, and it just bugs the holy hell out of me, 100%.
weapon makes you unkillable, and it's only accessed by paying real money. I think we could all agree this is an undeniable example of pay to win, and this type
Yeah.
of system doesn't sit well with many players. The few who can and do pay will enjoy dominating those who can't. So those who can't
And I've never done it, but is that even fun for people to buy? Because to me, it feels like you don't earn it. Like that's the whole reason that I enjoy MMOs is because everything you do in the game feels like you're earning it. It feels like you've progressed. You've made like it works on the dopamine like sensors in your brain, right? Or whatever the hell it is. It is what I've heard, right? Where completing the tasks and stuff, it makes you feel like you're actually accomplishing something with your life. When in reality, you're just sinking time into a fucking video game. But it makes you feel good because it makes you feel like you've earned that. And I would think the same would be true for even the people who are buying their way up to the top. Like it doesn't feel like you earn it. In the same way that if you have the money to go out and build, I don't know, like a $5,000 gaming PC, right? But somebody gave you that money and you just go out the next day that you want to build it and you put it together and you're like, wow, this is really cool. But it wears off really fast. And it's not the same as the guy who saved up money for 2 years and wanted to, picked all the parts. It was like his dream. He dreamed about it. He put it together and he's going to value that PC that he built much more and enjoy it much more than the guy who has just had it given to him. Like that's kind of one of the joys in life is having a mountain. It's like the challenge and accomplishing something and doing that with your wallet in the game. I don't even see how it's fun for the people who do it. I guess that's what's always confused me. And so whenever he says like, the people will enjoy dominating them, yeah, maybe for a little bit, but eventually they get bored, right? I mean, because they didn't earn it. They didn't accomplish it. I don't know. The whole thing just seems weird to me. I just don't know how it's a concept that has stayed around. I really don't. Not in MMOs, at least. Like in an FPS, it's a lot more clear, right? Like if you could buy a more powerful gun that allows you to win more, I could understand that. But in MMOs where everything is on display as like even down to the armor, the skin, like in WoW, it's the mounts and the transmogs, right? It's like it's all a display of your accomplishments in the game. And FPS games don't really have that, so it's all about getting that competitive edge. And I could understand, sinking money into that for that reason. But in an MMO, it's like cheating your way to a status. It just doesn't. I don't know. I don't see how that's fun.
will leave and your game will die. Game designers know that selling overpowered weapons or armor for real money is a great way to make money very quickly, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah,
Because once
they're
your
not
player base
idiots.
realize you are doing this, the majority of your player base who are not paying will simply leave because the game becomes unfair to them.
Yep.
If you sell power, you will make money, but you will also alienate a
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how Lost Ark handles
massive
this.
amount of your player base, and this is not exactly a good tactic you want to go for when game designing. So what if there was a way to keep selling powerful things, but also keep all of the non-paying players around? What if there was a way to make those non-payers think that
I
your
don't think
game
that
is
lasts
still
long.
fair, even though it isn't? I'd say it's fair that if we all agree the only way to get a powerful item is by
The
paying
fuck
real
is that
money, the
game?
game by definition is pay to win, because getting that item is winning. But here's the trick many game designers are hoping that you will fall for. The most common argument against a game being pay to win is when people say to me, but you can get the item by playing the game. So let's
Yeah, that's bullshit because a lot of times you absolutely can, but if the grind is unreal or it's not a real expectation that somebody should have, right? It's like 9,000 hours. I think there was a really high profile game that did this. It was Star Wars. I think it was when, like Star Wars: The Old Republic or Star Wars Battlefront 2 came out years ago. Probably almost 10 years, maybe less. I don't know. I just remember when it came out and somebody put together the things. It was like to get some of the skins of the lightsabers or some of the character unlocks without paying money. It was like 9,000 hours. That's literal years, multiple years. It's just not realistic, especially given that you're talking about the entertainment industry. It's fleeting, right? Like as soon as the next cool flashy thing comes, your player base is gone, right? Unless you can keep them hooked, and that's just not feasible in a lot of cases. It's exactly why like Call of Duty makes a new game every year because it's new and flashy, and it's easier to do that than to just enhance their existing game because people want new, people want flashy, right? So for MMOs, it's already an uphill battle. I just don't know why you do this to yourself. It's weird.
Explore that. Imagine you are playing a game and someone kills you. They have a super powerful weapon and you want that weapon. You discover you can buy it in the game's cash shop for 100 real pounds, or you can get it by killing a single simple boss in the game. A boss which any player can kill and takes about 1 hour. That's really a no-brain decision. You'll go and kill the enemy and get the weapon. It's only 1 hour of your time.
In
That's
that case, it
easily
makes
worth
sense.
it over spending £100. 1 hour of your time is worth less than £100, so you do that. In this example, the item has a real-world acquisition value, £100, but also an in-game
1 hour of your time less than 100 pounds. I don't know about that. I don't know about that, man. If you check me out on the Tech Buys channel, we'll teach you how to flip that on its head. Teach you some programming skills that are worth a lot more than that.
time acquisition value, roughly 1 hour. To many people, spending the time of 1 hour is more efficient than spending the money because the acquisition cost in time is less to them than the cost in money would be. Most people would happily lose 1 hour but not £100 because most people make less than £100 an hour. Very few people will call this exact example pay to win because to many people playing the game is the best choice here.
Yeah, I think in this example, okay,
But
let's see
what
where
if
it
we
goes.
keep the mechanics of the situation exactly the same, but we change the values? Imagine if the super powerful weapon only cost £10 in the shop, but finding it in the game now takes 100 hours. The mechanics of it being available haven't changed, but now you may feel a bit differently about whether the game is pay to win or not. In
Yeah,
this example, for many
absolutely.
people, playing the game is no longer the best choice. Here we are looking at the acquisition cost of the item and asking, what's more valuable to you, £10 or 100 hours? Which of
Yeah,
these would you
and that's not realistic. Like, it's just not realistic at all, I guess. Let me let me rephrase because in some games I think it is a realistic expectation as long as there's no paywall, right? So if for instance, wow, people spend years on tiny percentage chances for RNG drops of different transmog items, right? And they spend years, literal years, so probably a lot more than 100 hours going after just a single item, right? Or a single group of items. But regardless, people spend a lot longer than that and they're okay with it, but the reason they're okay with it is because it's the same for everybody else. When you see somebody who has that, you can't immediately think like, oh shit, they buy it, or it's the same reason that like using a FPS game as an example, it's the same reason, like, as soon as you have reports of there being hackers in your game, you see a giant percentage of player base drop unless you can put out some positive publicity saying that you're doing something to address them and prove to your audience, your player base, that you're doing something to address it. Because as soon as there's the illusion of hackers in the game, every time you die, every time somebody wins, you're wondering if it was due to the fact that there was somebody else cheating there, that there was somebody else hacking there. And it's the same with MMOs. It's the exact same concept, just in a different thing. Because in FPS, there's the the grind is your personal skill level improving, right? And so you could say like, oh, I put in this much time, that's why I'm this good, that's why I win this much, that's why I have this KD spread, blah blah blah, whatever, win to loss ratio. Whereas in an MMO, you have transmogs. It's like I put in this much time, therefore I have this skin. But if you could buy your way to it, it just that illusion, that veil is just ripped away, and it's like, well, how do I know they didn't buy a WoW token and then just trade it, or how do I know they didn't just go online and do it? It ruins it. And so I guess I'm going back to the 100 hours. Like, you can't just set a threshold and say this is the hour grind that every game should do, because it is dependent on a case by case basis. But it's also dependent on if they have a cash shop that allows you to buy that item. I think that is entirely wrong, and there's no way to justify it. I really don't. I don't believe it has a place in any game ever if you want to make it a fair playing field. Now, if you're going after a shameless cash grab, go for it. And this is what my opinion on Lost Ark is. I don't think that it can be taken as a serious game because of the fact that it's structured in that way. And it's the same reason that I've always kind of turned away from games like BDO. I'm not saying they're not fun. I'm just saying I don't think you can ever take it serious at any level because it becomes a battle of the wallets. And to me, that's just it's not fun whenever you have to question, why does that person have it? Did he just buy his way to it? And most of the time the answer is yes.
rather lose. Now we're pushing into what many would consider pay to win, because spending £10 is now preferred over spending 100 hours. We can keep the
Yeah,
mechanics of this
100%.
situation the same and change the numbers to anything. If we use hyperbole,
Look at this fucking asshole. Not getting a piece of virtual event memorabilia is not even close to buying a new car without headlights. Feel free to not play games to do this, but I think it's a pretty obnoxious millennial attitude to feel you're entitled to have access to something just because someone else gets it. That's incredibly, incredibly stupid. Uh, that's the example of like taking making a straw man argument, right? It's like propping up this other thing or kind of going into personal insults. Like I don't know how things about video games, like especially when you get into like fucking free to play models and stuff, right? Like come on, man, we're talking about entertainment here. It's like people getting really, there were like the nerds in high school or in college that always kind of they were like the goth dudes that dressed in chains and shit, and they were always sitting over in the corner having like heavy debates and discussions on like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, and like there'd be rifts in their friendship because like two people wouldn't agree on some like fan theory of like Lord of the Rings shit. That's what's going on here. It's like the fucking weird kids in the back. It's like most people aren't posting on Reddit. Like it's like this tiny little echo chamber. Most people are just playing the game, right? So I don't understand. People get so bent out of shape. I mean, of course, you could have opinions. I have opinions about it, but you also have to understand that this is like super ultra nerd opinion, right? Most people just don't even give a shit about it. And these guys get so fucking mad, man. It's ridiculous. Like this guy, man. This
we can
guy.
go to, would you rather spend a single penny or 10,000 hours to get the best weapon in the game? By now, pretty much everyone's agreeing to spend the money. But what this sliding scale, or not pay to win into pay to win, reveals is interesting, because it's not a defined moment. There is no one single accepted mark.
See this shit. I'm listening to Josh too, but he starts going into like this altruistic kind of bullshit, like world values, how you should live your life, the harsh realities of life from Divine Infect. Fucking Christ, man.
On the scale where the game goes from
What
being
a
not pay
tool.
to win to pay to win, when the time acquisition and the money acquisition flip in their authority. That moment will change based on how much you as an individual value your time. Now, some people will argue that the ability to buy the weapon at all makes the game pay to win.
Yeah,
Even if there is an in-game way to grab the weapon, the
that's me.
fact that it's in the shop at all for anyone to go and purchase makes the game pay to win.
Yep, 100%. That's my take, and honestly, I think it's the right take because it ruins the illusion of it being a fair playing field, and that is what ruins games
Because these items are
across
also
all
obtainable with
genres.
time, this brings another element to the discussion. We now need to work out how much your time is worth to you, and I do this by basing it off the hourly wage versus how much time you'd have to spend in the game.
Now, and see, even that's just trying to justify. I don't justify. I don't care if you're a multimillionaire. I think at the end of the day, when you have something in the cash shop that you could buy and it has an equivalent, the same exact item also has a grind associated with it in the game. The fact that you could buy it and cut your way to the front, like winning is one of the metrics of winning is doing something faster than somebody else. Like races have been like a competition thing for as long. Everything in life is a competition, right? Whether you like it or not. Everything. And getting somewhere faster than somebody else is a definition of winning, right? There's a reason that people are continuing to look at mass transportation. There's a reason that people prefer flying than driving 14 hours, right? When you could just hop on a plane and do it 2 hours or 3 hours. It's because it's not looking at the wage and stuff. Like obviously that influences your decision to do something. But when you're talking about entertainment, when you're talking about playing a game, I think the second that illusion of fairness, or the second that you have to question if that was earned at least in an MMORPG, if that was earned compared to bought, the second that becomes a question is the second that the perception of your game is pay to win. I think the second that that veil is pulled off, your game is pay to win, and there's not much you could do to go back and fix that when your player
If
base
you
thinks that.
earn £10 an hour, which is above the average minimum wage in the UK, you could say any progress in the game must be at least £10 an hour worth of progress. So if it turns out that you can get an item grinding for 2 hours or just buy it for £10, you're going to equate that item to time in your own head. You're going to stop working out how much money is it worth, and you're going to start looking at how much time is it worth. If the game says to you, hey, you can buy this item for X amount of money, or you can grind for X amount of time, you will work out whether the time
I don't
and the
do that.
money
It could be
is
99 cents
worth
and I'm still
it
not going to buy it.
to
I
you.
just I have a hard line
But
on it.
as different people earn different amounts of money,
I'm also
that switch.
I'm also in my late 20s. Like this whole pay to win type of stuff is like a relatively new concept. It's not something that I grew up with. It was like you bought the game. I grew up with the Sega Genesis, right? Like you bought the game, you bought the cartridge, that was it. You had access to absolutely everything that the game had to offer. And if you wanted to find a way to get your cheat codes, you bought a fucking magazine that had them in there, right? And that was just the way it is. So like I guess maybe that's just something that's ingrained in my being, but I am not going to pay extra money for a skin. I'm not going to pay extra money for that. Like I prefer fair level playing fields when it comes to video games as a whole, and that's just my take on it. It's not necessarily right or wrong. That's just the way I play. I know there's a lot of people that don't mind kicking a dollar or two over to like Halo Infinite, right? There's a lot of guys my age that grew up with Halo. They play Halo Infinite. They don't mind paying for a skin that they think looks cool. That's not me. I don't necessarily care about the customization side of games. I care about like at least in an MMORPG that status of I earned this, and people know by looking at it like, oh shit, that's awesome.
Of paying becoming worth it for you.
Like it even got to the point. Sorry, I know I keep pausing. It even got to the point. I remember playing when Classic WoW released. I was leveling a warrior. I was just doing a solo level, right? Just doing like pug groups for dungeons, shit like that. I was like level 35, and I was in or like in the 30s. I was in the wetlands, and it'd been like forever. This was like early on. I hadn't really played much WoW in years. Didn't remember shit. So I was just really taking my time, going slow, and solo questing, solo leveling, finding groups when I had to. And I remember some guy asking me, he's like, have you gotten your whirlwind axe yet?" And I was like, "Nah, not yet." I think I was still rocking like a Dead Mind's axe in my 30s. Like it was stupid, right? I wasn't even close to playing right. It was just pure casual, just running around, taking my time, looking at everything, exploring. And there were guys like this was like 2 months after release or something like that. I don't remember the exact timeline, but I just remember they were freaking out. Like one guy was like, "Oh my God, like why have you not boosted? Why have you not done this?" And to me that ruined my impression. I went over to retail right after it. I was like, "What the fuck? Like everybody's just boosting their way. There's nobody like playing the game for what it is anymore. They're just boosting, and with boosting came pumping real money into the game to buy gold." And it was I don't know, as soon as that veil is pulled, it's like it's hard for me to get back into it.
You versus spending the time to get it is always in flux. If you earn £10,000 a day and there's a game breaking item which costs
Holy shit,
£10,000 and takes a year of in game
10,000
grind
pounds
to
a day.
get, it's actually worth it for you
It's
to
insane.
just buy it. And many others would argue the game is pay to win. But you could reply, no, I got this by paying, but you could get it by grinding. I got it earlier because it's efficient for me to pay, but that doesn't prevent you
Meant
getting
to.
it. So having an item be accessible through
Fucking
both
shit.
paying real money or playing the game doesn't actually prevent the game being or not being pay to win. But there's one major issue many people forget whenever they use the phrase, you can get it in the game. MMO games do not stand still. They are a live service medium, constantly being updated and expanded. And the time spent grinding toward a powerful item is also time creeping toward the next major game update and an even more powerful item being released. If you could spend money...
Exactly. That's why I think the grind for skins and transmogs is much more satisfying, because for the exact opposite reason that he's saying. He's saying that the grind for more powerful items is also, getting closer and closer to that item being replaced. But it's also the exact opposite is true for skins. It's those items and those skins are becoming more and more rare because maybe that content won't be accessible any longer, or maybe it's much more difficult to find people that are willing to do groups to get that, or maybe it was like just for a period of time that you could get that particular skin or transmog. And so I think the opposite is true, and that's why I think the transmog grind is so valuable to keep a player base alive. Like, look at WoW, that's like a huge part of WoW, especially when the expansions suck, right? That's what people go back to, is like, fuck, I'm gonna go grind for the what is it, the time lost proto Drake or something, right? It's like you go back for these fucking items that you always wanted whenever you have nothing else to do. It gives you something to do, which at the end of the day is exactly what the developers are and should be after, is keeping you engaged in that universe.
Or grind for 2 months to get a powerful item, but in 2 months' time there's going to be another update with a better item. Now you're faced with an even
World
more
of Tanks was really
choice.
bad about that.
The power of any
Premium
weapon or
rounds.
armor in a game is judged
I had a
based on
buddy
the
that
power of other
fell
weapons
into it
and other
hard.
pieces of armor. You are the best in relation to others. If once you grind for the best item, another more powerful one has released, you never actually have the best. You will never get that feeling of superiority. Neverwinter did this incredibly badly. It would take you months to get the best item, and by the time you did,
I never really
the new
played
expansion was
Neverwinter,
here,
but I've heard
and
it's
your
a
item wasn't the
giant
best
cash grab.
anymore. In this case, paying for the item is your only choice if you want to use it while it is still the most powerful. And it's this design technique many people forget and companies use all the time, because hardcore fans of the game will instantly rush to the classic line of, you don't need to pay, you can get the items by playing. But
Yeah,
they fail.
and we've already discussed that. That's a bullshit line. Absolute bullshit. And anybody that does that is just fucking, they're on something, man. They're just sitting there wanting their game to survive. They just have that connection to it so badly that they don't want it to die. And anybody that says anything negative, it's funny to watch the people get in arguments on Lost Ark 2 with obvious fucking trolls. You'll get these trolls who are out there like, how do I equip my wallet, right? And you'll get these like 2 or 3 guys, and they come out and they just start jumping on the guy. It's not pay to win. You get this blah blah blah. You just got to talk to this person, do the thing with the ball. And it's like, yeah, you could do all that, or you could just go visit, click a button, and open up the shop, right? So it's these people, they get so defensive about it. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? I mean, it's nobody's saying you're wrong for liking a game that's pay to win. It just is where, like, I'm enjoying my time in Lost Ark, and I'm trying to look past the fact that I'm seeing a lot of warning signs for pay to win, but I haven't gotten to the end game part yet where it really impacts me. So I'm going to continue with it until I hit that point. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you are less of a person because you enjoy a pay to win game. Everybody has different likes and interests and stuff. It's just weird how people attach some form of self-worth to a fucking video game. I never understood it.
Fail to account for the cost of the time investment, meaning even if you can get the items by playing, by the time you get them, they are no longer relevant in comparison to the other items in the game. But what if the shop isn't directly selling the item or the weapon?
And
What
it's
if you can't
indirect.
go to the
Even if
cash
it's
shop and
indirect,
just
it
buy
doesn't
the
matter.
end game gear straight away? But you can buy small minor advantages that will make getting the end game gear easier.
Same
you
thing.
can buy a
Pay to win.
faster mount than anyone else can get.
Pay to
You
win.
can buy more
Because you're
inventory.
always wondering, did that guy have to put in 5 minutes or 500 hours? You'll always be wondering, like, did he take a shortcut? And the second that happens, I go back to the second that happens, the second that you question, is everybody on the same level playing field, that your game's pay to win.
You can buy a revive potion for you or for your entire team. You can buy an upgrade item, or if your game has an upgrade system where the item or the reagents may break, you can buy a special item which
I
prevents
hate that.
the item breaking.
And I'm pretty sure Lost Ark has it, but I haven't gotten to the point where it's like super
You can buy
impactful
all
yet.
these little advantages, and that's where the lines become blurred. Pay to win, pay for advantage. Are they just the same thing
Yes.
with extra steps?
Yes.
Many people say
100%.
to me, you can't pay to win in this game because you can't just buy the best items or armor. You can only pay for an advantage. And this irritates me because it goes back to the same sliding scale problem from earlier.
Yeah.
Any process in a game will take time. And if you can spend money to speed up that process, you are replacing time with money. And how much
Amen.
time you can or want to replace with however much money you have or are willing to spend will differ based on how much your time is worth to you. If
Yep.
you need to get to the next village in a game to complete a quest, and walking there would take you 5 hours, or you can pay.
Yeah, look at this fucking shit with World of Tanks. Like I said, I had a buddy who fell into this like hard, man. It was almost sad, but God, he dumped so much money into it. So the premium accounts, like you had to have that if you wanted to grind out premium tanks. You had to, or else the time that you had to sink was just not worth it. I think some things you even had to buy. And then there were gold ammo. That's what it was. And the gold ammo did more damage, I think, or had better armor penetration. And if you went in, I think there were like special premium. I don't know if there were special premium like matches or if it was just that you would get to higher tiers and you were playing against people who were playing with premium tanks and you would just get demolished. But whenever you were in those premium tank battles, everybody used gold ammo. And if you didn't, you would just get decimated. And so it hit a point where if you wanted to play the game, you're on this constant treadmill of just pumping money into it to buy ammo, which fucking sucks, man. Like imagine that every time you take a shot, every time you click your mouse, it's the equivalent of spending money. That's exactly what it was. Oh man, I don't know how he did it. But it got a lot of people hooked, but man, I just couldn't imagine. Like imagine missing a shot in World of Tanks with gold ammo and knowing that you just spent money. That's too real for me. The realism level of that is too much. Too high.
£5 to teleport
It's
instantly,
ridiculous.
you're asking yourself, is 1 hour of in-game running worth £1 to you? You'll probably take the teleport, get the powerful reward, join a team of other players doing some tough content and
This is an
survive because you've
interesting
got the
slide
powerful
deck that he
stuff.
has here.
Your success and advantages then snowball. You could even go and find the other still travelling non-teleporting player and kill them with the powerful quest reward you just got. Just because you're not buying a powerful weapon or piece of armor directly doesn't mean you're not making the acquisition of them a lot faster. I mean, that's literally what paying for advantage means.
Yeah.
You're still giving yourself the ability to access the win state faster. Instead of directly buying the sword.
Exactly. And the fact that different people have different definitions of what the win state is, I'm sorry to say, is completely irrelevant. Like when you're talking about something that is finite, right? Like a person's life, time, and doing things more efficiently is always going to be considered a win, right? In everything you do. Like even when it comes to making, I don't know, talk about like millionaires or billionaires or something, right? Like the guy who becomes a millionaire earlier in his life is winning over those that are not. And that's why, I mean, they always tell you like don't compare yourselves to others because there's always somebody who's going to be winning at something. Like even if you're into, I don't know, bodybuilding, right? There's always going to be a guy that's bigger. There's always going to be somebody that's in front of you that's winning, and that's why it's better just to look at yourself and not compare yourselves to others. But when it comes to a game, to argue over the definition of winning, I think is kind of like a moot point. Like it's irrelevant. Like doing things faster is society is deemed in everything that it's winning, right? That is just society as a whole. It's a fucking truth of the world. And so even though we're talking about a video game, right, which really has no impact on anybody's day-to-day lives, right? It still doesn't defeat defeat the point of the fact that like we cannot argue that doing something faster is not winning. That's just a truth of the universe.
You're directly buying an
Anything
advantage
else
to
is
go
just
and get the
defending
sword.
and
There's an
fanboying
extra step involved, but ultimately
or
spending money
fangirling.
still means you are getting to the win condition faster. If a company wants to sell you something, they need to work out whether it's a thing you want or a thing you need. If it's something you want, you can often just pass over it because people are pretty good with money. If it's something
Yep.
you need, you're much more likely to buy it. So
Yep.
they start selling you things you will need, like power.
Life
If you don't
energy.
buy it, you'll fall behind.
Life energy
But then
potions,
they realise that
stronghold
once the player base
reduction in
works
time.
out they're doing this, the player base leaves. So a company is in an interesting position where they want to sell you something you need instead of something you want, but they also want to give you a way to acquire this needed thing without paying real money. Because that's the justification for saying the game isn't pay to win. If there is an item in the
But it
cash
is.
shop, but there is also a way to acquire the item in the game, they don't want you to acquire it in the game because they don't make any money when you do that. It's in the game so they can point to that and say, look, it's not pay to win, it's in the game. If they really wanted you to acquire it through playing the game,
And
it
if people find a way to acquire it efficiently, God forbid, by playing the game, they'll patch it and make it more difficult. Which is what the fuck they do. It's fucking brutal, man. They get you hooked, and you find a way to actually do and play the system that they fucking set up. And the second that they realize that they're not getting their weekly $15 crate purchases in anymore, they're going to find a way to patch that and make it more arduous, more difficult. It's a brutal world out there.
wouldn't be in the cash shop. The cash shop is full of things that you will eventually need. This makes the game pay to win.
Yep.
Even if you can acquire those things in the game through time.
He made this video before Lost Ark came out, and it's like he had a crystal ball.
You forget as well that your time is as valuable, if not more valuable, than your money. So how do we define pay to win? Well, unfortunately, because it's such a simple phrase, definition is difficult. There's a reason legal stuff is long and wordy. It's to be as specific as possible. If the definition of something really matters, you can expect pages and pages of very complex legalese explaining exactly what it is. The phrase pay to win means too many things because different people can have different definitions for when paying becomes winning, how much the paying needs to be compared to potential time investment, or what winning even is in an MMORPG.
See, and all this is in my mind easily solvable by you obviously can't focus on, in the same way that you can't say that somebody is a what's a good comparison here? I guess the point I'm trying to make is that this whole argument of people can't agree on definitions of things, it's like, fine. I mean, that's perfectly fine. But then you have to find metrics that people can agree on to do this. And I think, or at least focus on some truths that can't be swayed by subjective opinion. You have to focus on more objective truths of the matter, which is the second that an item or a pathway through advantage-based purchases that give you some form of advantage in the game, the second that becomes available on the cash shop, even if it has a parallel grind for it that doesn't cost money in the game, the second that there is a way to pay your way into an advantage or to do something faster or to get an item faster, the second that you can put $1 down or a penny down and achieve something slightly faster than somebody who doesn't do that, it becomes pay to win. And the second that the illusion, the second that the veil of is this an even playing ground is pulled away, and the second that comes into question, I think that is the marker of a pay to win game. I don't see how you argue that. I just don't. And the fact that different people have different definitions of what winning is doesn't matter. It really it's just people trying to nitpick words because they don't want to hear that the game that they like is pay to win, because pay to win is held in a bad light. That's really all it comes down to, is like, well, it's not, because it's my game and I would never play a bad game that did that. It's like, well, yeah, you would. And a lot of other people do, and it's okay. But doesn't necessarily mean anything about you. Even if you pay money into these pay to win games, it's not saying anything bad about you. You like what you like. I think that's the biggest hurdle as a community that the gaming community needs to get over. Is like, don't demonize people for partaking in a system in the game. If the game allows you to buy an item and the person wants to buy the item, buy the fucking item. And if you don't like it, don't play the fucking game. It's that simple. But it doesn't mean the person's a bad person because they dumped $5,000 in a month into a game. It just means that they spent their money in a way that I would never dream about doing. But it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. I also collect trackball mice and keyboards, and I put money into that. And there's a lot of people that would never fucking dream of spending, a couple $100 on a fucking mouse, or a couple $100 on a classic keyboard, right? Just like there's dudes that spend thousands of dollars on watches. There's a lot of people who would never understand that. People like what they like, man. I mean, because this guy he gets a lot of value out of spending money on the game, fuck it, let him do it. But don't demonize him, and don't get into these stupid fucking Facebook-esque Reddit arguments over it. It's ridiculous.
e.g. game. Personally, I see the virtual world as separate from the physical, and any limitations you've faced in the real world shouldn't follow you into the virtual. And likewise, any advantages you have shouldn't transfer over. The great thing about the virtual world is the chance to reset the equilibrium, to have everyone on an even footing. It's one of the greatest strengths of
Yes and no. I think that the real world is going to be is it's going to influence every single hobby, right? Let's say you're into woodworking or leatherworking or something. Like if you are really wealthy, you're going to be able to buy the best tools and stuff. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't produce like equally cool products with lesser tools, right? Like you could build really cool shit with just a handsaw. It's going to take you a lot more time and maybe it won't be as polished or, different things take into account. But I do think that the his statement of games are supposed to always be this even playing field and things like, no, they're not. Games are what they are. Games are determined by the developer. And my point, I hope it doesn't come across like I'm contradicting myself. What I said earlier is still true. Like the second that the veil is pulled off and it's seen that your game is not an even playing field for people, that means that it's pay to win or that it's unfair in some way, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. It just is what it is, right? That's the way the developers built it, it's the way they intended it to be. So if I don't necessarily believe that games need to be an even playing field. Some games will be, some games won't. Just in the way that not every movie needs to be of a certain genre. Not every movie needs to be a feel-good movie, because there's some people that really enjoy horror movies, myself included, and or thriller movies, right? And there's people that can't stand them, and they're never going to watch a movie like that, and that's perfectly fine. We're talking about entertainment, which is everybody's entertained. A lot of people are entertained in different ways. There tends to be norms across more culturally than like people as a whole. Like some cultures prefer different types of entertainment over others. That's why you see a lot of differences in things like Korean MMOs and others that have, more of like this building with a chance to break and stuff like that. It is what it is because it works in the place for the target audience that the game was created for. And so moving it over into like a Western area doesn't mean that you have to rip out those systems. It's like take it for what it is. And if you want to appeal to a Western audience or a Western culture, then yeah, maybe you need to change some things up if you want to stand a chance, but they don't have to do anything. They build the game the way they build it. I think this whole concept of it should be an even playing field, it shouldn't be influenced by outside things is like, yeah, I mean, honestly, from a personal standpoint, I agree that that would be a fun game, but I don't agree that that's something that game developers should do. They do what they want, man. Don't tread on me. Everybody live their own life. Like if you don't like it, don't play it. It's ultimately what it
of
comes down to.
online adventure games. We are all adventurers and we all start fair. But the more you allow the real world wealth to impact this, the less fair it becomes.
Yeah,
One of the most
but that's not
beautiful
necessarily
ideals of
bad.
the online adventure game is as long as two players can access the same game, they should start on the same footing, and their success in the game should be based on their understanding and their skill within the game.
That's exactly why I love games like CS:GO or Dota or StarCraft. I love super competitive games that don't aren't impacted by anything else other than skill. But the other thing could be true there because then it always draws into question, is this person hacking to gain an advantage? And that's the same thing. Like I said, the example of CS:GO, right? Like whenever they went free to play, it was like everybody was like jumping ship for a while until Valve came out and said, yeah, we're actually going to do something about the hackers. I mean, it could very well could still be in the same state. I haven't played in a while, but I know that brought a lot of people back. But it's the same thing. Like that's their veil, and it was ripped away for a little bit. It was like, okay, this isn't an even playing field anymore. A lot of people left, but nobody nobody should be telling games that they need to be that way ever. There's a lot of people that get enjoyment out of just buying the best and walking around and showing it off, and to each their own.
If putting more money into a game makes your life within the game easier, or gives you an advantage like travelling quicker, or carrying more, or getting closer to the ideal win condition as considered by the majority of the player base, someone will argue your game is pay to win.
Yep.
But if you can achieve all of these in-game without paying real money, someone else will defend it as not pay to win.
Yep.
Because you can use your time instead. What
And
the
they're wrong.
defenders often fail to address is what time is worth changes person to person.
Exactly, which is why that I don't agree with this point here. What they fail to address is, has the veil been pulled away? Has it come into question? Is somebody else getting there with their wallet compared to putting the money in? If the answer is yes, if the answer is yes, that is a question that people are not sure of when they look at a person and they look at the items they have. It's pay to win.
And how long you get to enjoy the item for will dictate whether it's worth paying or worth grinding. If getting an item would take 1 year, but within 1 year the item will become irrelevant, grinding is
This guy I agree with. Not much art. You boil it down to this: can you buy something with real money that makes you stronger than you could be without spending money? Then it is pay to win. And see, people jump on board, and it's ridiculous because even this is addressing in my mind the wrong point. The point that comes to mind is, are there people in the game? If you look at a person, and this should go for even the defenders of the pay to win model, right? If you look at a person and you can't tell if they got that through paying money to get to get it faster, or buying it directly from the cash shop, regardless of which way, right? Whether they paid for an advantage or whether they paid for it directly. If you don't know if they paid for it or if they grinded for it, it's pay to win. That's it. If you are unsure, it's pay to win. Like in WoW, there's mounts and stuff that you could buy, right? But there's a lot of mounts, a lot of skins, a lot of transmogs that you can look at, and the only way you get it is through grinding. Now, granted, they have the WoW token now and shit like that, right? Which is again an example of the veil being pulled away. But for a while, that wasn't the case, right? Early days of WoW, it's like you saw the skin, you saw the transmog, you saw the weapon, you knew that equated to the time that somebody put into the game. So that was not pay to win. In my mind, it's that cut and dried. I don't see how you can argue against that.
Pointless. Paying becomes,
Because it completely takes away this concept of people have different definitions of win and all that. I mean, of course. So stop focusing on that. You're getting these endless fucking cycles of the same bullshit over and over again. People just regurgitating different people's opinions and stuff on, well, but winning isn't this because it didn't address these matters. It's like, no, like all of that is besides the point. If you an objective way, an unbiased way to address this and to solve this is to look at it and say, can you tell me with 100% certainty that he got that? Well, and nothing's 100% certain, but can you tell me with a strong degree of certainty that this guy got this through playing the game and he didn't get it through buying it? Then the answer is you're not pay to win or pay to win, right? In Lost Ark, you cannot answer that. You can't say that you're sure he got it through grinding. You can't, because he could have easily bought some advantage-based things that got him there.
the only way.
Pay to win.
Where does the line for pay to win or pay for advantage lie for you personally? How much money per item versus hour of grind is the correct balance point? Are there any acceptable examples of pay for advantage, or is selling power on any level at any amount always?
It's different. Acceptable to fit a definition, I would say no, but acceptable in terms of, is it acceptable for a game to do this ever? Like, yeah, of course. Every game can do whatever the fuck they want. You can build a game however the fuck you want. Nobody should be telling you how to do it. Nobody should be ripping on you for building your game a certain way. If you wanted to make a game where every time you log in you had to pay $5, like, then that's your fucking thing, man. Go do it. Like, shit, you know, to each their own. Build it however you want to build it. If people like it, they'll play. But if what he's asking is it right in regards to the definition of pay to win, then I think the answer is no. Like, there is no justifiable level from a definition standpoint of paying for advantage. Like, if the second that it's in there, even if it's only a penny, it becomes pay to win. You are paying money to decrease time. That is pay to win.
Unacceptable because it cannot possibly be balanced to be completely inclusive. Let me know in the comments below what you think about paying to win or paying for advantage in games, and in the future I'll return to this topic and we'll try to find the perfect line, balancing cost and time. Cheers for watching. Another massive thank you to the supporters on Patreon.
That was an interesting video. He covered a lot of really good points. That's what I was hoping for, actually, because he always does a really good job of kind of pulling together ideas and stuff. And again, I go back to it's much easier for me to react than it is for him to do a lot of the work and put this in. That's why he is getting all the views he gets. So he does a great job with these. I like to add my own commentary to it because I think they're interesting topics, and he really does give a good solid starting point, a good platform to kind of react to. But yeah, I mean to summarize, I don't think I think a couple things should probably happen from the community standpoint, and that is to stop demonizing games and people who get smeared with this like pay to win stigma, because it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, it's just the way that they've decided to build out their game. But the games and the people that defend it should stop trying to pretend that it's not what it is. I mean, the game is clearly pay to win, and the fact that it's even come into question, like nobody accuses Counter Strike, CS:GO of being pay to win, or Dota, or StarCraft 2, right? Nobody accuses those games of being pay to win. And there's a reason, because there's nothing that they've done that really draws into question that kind of thing, aside from like buying hacks or something, right? But that's a completely different topic. And so I think, one, the people on the accusing side saying, oh, you're pay to win, you're evil, you're the devil, blah, 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 stop. It doesn't matter. It's a video game, and if you don't like it, go play something else. And it's like fucking kindergartners, man. It's like, and the people who are defending it, stop. You're not helping your own cause. You like a game that's pay to win, and that's not a bad thing. It's literally a fucking business model of the game. It's the last thing that you should even be concerning yourself with when it comes to entertainment. It's like asking if you enjoy how Netflix has their subscription service set up. It's like, fucking hell, man. Who gives a fuck? Do you like the content that's in there or not? And if the answer is yes, but it's too expensive, then that's your decision. You've made up your mind and you go find something else. But if the answer is yes and you accept the cost, then go fucking enjoy your game. Shut the fuck up. Like it's just a fucking business model, man. It doesn't have any fucking weight or relation. It has nothing to do. It says nothing about you as a person if you like to spend money on your hobby. A lot of people like to spend money on their hobby. Different people have different dollar amounts associated with different hobbies. For a lot of people, they're not willing to put too much into a video game when the alternative is to buy a game once and play it for as long as they want. Okay. They don't value their gaming time as much as somebody who enjoys pumping money into like BDO or to Lost Ark. I think the only time that I ever have an issue with it is when companies start preying on vices and things, right? Or a younger audience, and they try to hook them with addictive things, right? Like gambling or things like that. The same shit like with the big sugar, big tobacco, big alcohol, things like that, right? Where they know the risks and they intentionally market towards a younger generation that may not be able to make the same type of wise decisions about their future, right? That's the only time I have an issue with it, like whenever it becomes predatory. But in this case, I mean, fuck, man. So the dude with two kids wants to log in, spend $15 every month on a crate to unlock some games or to unlock some fucking gems that allow him to get upgraded into games. So fucking what? Don't crucify him, and he should also not be lashing out and attacking you in defense of what his interests are. I don't know. The whole thing's ridiculous, but it's fun to talk about. All right, thanks for tuning in today, guys. It's been fun. I'll be on later this week playing some more Lost Ark. Like I said, I am enjoying the game. I haven't really noticed any of the pay to win stuff yet, but I've seen where they're slowly working their little fingers into the mix with it. But anyway, it's been fun. Catch you guys in the next one. See ya.